And let's see. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep. Yes.
All right, great. So today is our monthly November meeting. We had to push it back by 1 week from when we normally have it because of the conflict with the CCL National Convention. And so here is our agenda for today. We'll go through our introductions for new members. We're going to be having a discussion and Q&A on the results from COP26. Mark is going to lead us through that. We'll go through our monthly calling campaign. Then I'll cover some miscellaneous topics. We'll go through our status reports, and we'll have breakout sessions if we have time remaining. All right, so actually, before we get into the COP26, let's introduce some new members. I know we have Shabu. Would you like to just say a few words about yourself and how you found out about it and what you're interested in doing?
Uh-oh.
Hi, Shabu. Can you still hear us?
Maybe he
not.
stepped away for a sec.
Okay, possibly. And then we have Allison. Allison, I can't recall if you're a new member or have you been with us for a while?
I am. I did join, I think, maybe October or September, but I missed the October meeting. So this is my first time joining these meetings.
Okay, great. Would you like to introduce yourself and just say a few words?
Yeah, so Allison, or call me Allie. I live in Spring, so I've reached out to Hans because I'm part of his chapter. And yeah, I just really wanted to get more involved. And so I think I'd seen like a volunteer posting for CCL. And so I joined the introductory session, and yeah, I really like the approach. And so I'm not really sure, you know, I do the calls and the, you know, the social media, I share all of that, but yeah, just sort of exploring how to get involved on a deeper level.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. And let's see, Shabu, are you back? Can you hear us? Okay, maybe we can get with Shabu a little bit later. And with that, Mark, why don't we jump right into the COP26 outcomes discussion?
Okay, thanks, Joe. Yeah, so I put together a couple of slides to just focus our discussion. I'm certainly, I'm not steeped in COP26, so I did look at a video conference and kind of took this information from a couple of people who attended the conference and followed it very closely. And at the end of the last slide, I'll have that source if anybody wants to go on the website and look at more detail on what these people shared. So so COP26, I think there was a total of about 190 some countries that attended. It wasn't just countries, there were a lot of individuals that also attended and a number of businesses also. I think fossil fuel industry was the largest delegation from the business sector, but certainly other businesses attended that probably were more climate action friendly. Anyways, the first slide shows key outcomes. If anybody has anything to add, by all means, feel free to step in as I'm going through this.
Yes, please. So the deforestation that we're talking about in South America, in the Amazon, they are clearing over 100 million kilometers a day, if I understand right, or maybe a week, which is drastic. But compared to that, if we look at Australia, they have made these drones that were made basically for the people to play with. They have basically modified them, and they can put 100,000 seeds for trees within a certain area in a day, which I thought was amazing. That should be probably put in most countries where the land has been, devastated and trees have been cut down, that could be implemented. And I understand that deforestation is not a big thing at this point because they're looking at 2030 and further. But the thing is that at this point, as the air becomes thinner and more contaminated, people are going to get more sick. And that is something that I feel would be important. But I think something like what you're talking about would be a beginning, but I think it could go faster. I don't know. That's just my perception.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Shabu. Yes, I know we're focused a lot on reducing emissions, but another equally alarming development is the loss of species. Every day we're losing a lot of species, just a lot of that through deforestation. So that's hopeful that you shared that information about what Australia has found. Another key outcome besides, well, let me back up a bit. On the deforestation, they actually agreed to some funding for that too. And then regarding methane emissions, over 100 countries agreed to reduce those by 30%. Supposedly that's fairly easy to do, but yeah. Certainly methane's a lot more destructive of it's got a lot more greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. Can we have the next slide, Joe, please? So under this heading of the Climate Pact, one of the main agreements was each country is going to look at their emission targets on a yearly basis. So previously, I believe they were doing that every 5 years, but given the need to keep up with the progress that we're making, the urgency of that, hopefully this will result in people revising their targets so we can at least stay below global warming of increase of 2 degrees Celsius and close to the 1.5 degrees Celsius that Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change says we need to do, definitely. Another agreement was reduce carbon dioxide emissions 45% by 2030. A lot of talk, probably a lot of headlines too about what was agreed to around coal. I know from what I understand that there were a number of bilateral agreements, some countries like Vietnam, Indonesia. But I think this general statement that was agreed to in the end was phase down elevated coal and inefficient subsidies for fossil fuels, kind of watered down from doing away completely with subsidies for fossil fuels. But again, they're working on a consensus model, and a lot of the developing countries are using coal mainly for a source of energy. And then I think for the first time, they came up with an agreement to start talking about how to finance loss and damage as a result of climate change for poorer countries. Next slide, please. Also agreed to set up some guidelines on measuring how to adapt implementation also of adaptation measures. And they agreed that they would increase the funding for poor countries to adapt to the effects of climate change. Next slide, please. And finally, some technical issues from the Paris Agreement rulebook. This was a pretty big advance. All countries agree to be transparent every 2 years about their greenhouse gas emissions and progress towards those goals. They agreed to set up a trading system for carbon emissions, and that would include only one country can claim credit for an emission reduction. I think previously there's been some disagreement and people use more than one country using claiming credit for emission reductions. So that's kind of a very broad brush approach to what came out of COP26. If you want to see more detail on that, I put the source there, and I can put in the chat the link for that. And I'll open it up for discussion.
Yeah, I'd like to start off. Mark, thank you for putting this together. It's a really good summary. And I guess the one point I'd like to bring up for discussion, from what I've been reading, in the local news and so on about coal in particular, that's what my discussion point is about. I thought I've read that coal is now more expensive than other energy sources. For example, renewables, wind or solar. Am I mistaken, or I thought that's the direction? And so based on that, I'm still wondering why countries are insisting to continue with coal.
If you were to look at East Africa or India or parts of Asia, the option may be true that the coal is much more expensive, but they don't have access to the other renewable energies or any energies in that fact. And therefore they are limited to what they can do. So I agree with you, but the availability is not being made or is not there for the countries that are still growing or trying to move away from coal. And therefore, I think the people are really stuck. That's my impression that I got more from Africa than the rest of the world.
So, yeah, I mean, I would add to that, Joe, that coal is dispatchable power, whereas wind and solar obviously are not. So you can't just simply build wind and solar. I mean, you need storage is what's lacking for electricity. So that's one big issue. And also, I think, in places where coal plants are being built at a rapid rate, like China, Vietnam, they're actually being built pretty cheaply. I mean, their costs are not the same as our costs. Now, you could argue that their renewable costs are probably lower too, but it's reliable power. I mean, and that's one big reason.
Thank you. And I think, Jim, you have your hand up as well. Why don't you go ahead, Jim Tucker?
Yeah, and I think one thing that occurred to me in the last week hearing the discussions is the ownership. And generally outside of US and most of Canada, national companies own the resources. And whether it's coal or oil or gas, hard minerals, generally water, whatever. So it struck me, particularly in the discussion on India, was maybe the government owns the resources, but there could be commercial outfits that are involved in the development and use. And so it could be, not saying that it's all brother-in-law deals, but there could be some other motivations other than this is a good idea, this is not a good idea for any consideration of transitions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim, for that.
Well, yeah, it must be said though that China is installing solar energy at a very rapid clip. So it's not necessarily that they're installing coal over and above renewables. It's just that they have access to coal. They don't have access to natural gas. So, I mean, I think that's more of the dynamic rather than, okay, they're just going to keep building coal plants and ignore renewable energy. No, they're very active in renewables as well. So I think it's more of a coal versus natural gas and the relative economics and access of those energy sources rather than renewables.
And
I'll go ahead, Jim.
And if I can follow on to Hans's comment there on China, one aspect that I read about a few years ago that we, are not as aware of is China, by the nature of its controlled economy. They do, they're responsible for all their citizens' health care. And they're beginning to see the patterns, particularly in the urban areas where there's a lot of coal use for both electricity and direct heat, of healthcare issues, respiratory problems, that sort of thing. So they have a bigger cycle than some outfits, and obviously they probably collect statistics on everything. So the air quality could be a factor in China's faster than otherwise transition away from coal, and their coal, a lot of it is low grade soft coal, high ash, and it's pretty nasty stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, I think China's just rapidly doing everything. That they have such energy demand that it's an all hands on deck approach. I was going to ask about the emissions commitments that countries made. I know that a lot of countries are behind on their commitments under the Paris Climate Accords. And so for that 45% reduction by 2030, I think it was, is there anything binding about that? There's nothing punitive for any countries that don't reach those goals, is there?
Not that I know of. Yeah, I think it's one thing in that transparency agreement that's supposed to help is by naming a country that's not meeting their goals, it'll bring on some shame. I don't know how well that works, but I saw that as one motivating factor for moving people towards meeting their goals.
Yeah, one thing that I'd like to add, I attended the CCL National Convention last weekend, and there was a session in there specifically about COP26. And it was interesting that they referenced the European plan for the carbon border adjustment. And in that discussion, they referenced that as what could be an effective enforcement mechanism. So there's not going to be a COP26 global enforcement, but regions or individual countries can do that enforcement through that mechanism. I thought that was interesting.
Well, and that follows on to our discussion after we talked with Hannah, the representative from TX2 the other day. While it's kind of like I have always told my kids, while I think geology is everything, economics runs everything. And the border adjustments, I think, are the biggest hammer that for trade that's out there right now. And so adoption of border adjustments could drive a lot of things. Thank you.
Yep. Hey, I've got, I was trying to understand for myself, where do we stand now after COP26 as far as predictions for global warming are concerned? And I found a really neat slide, which I'd like to share just really quickly, which I think people may find this.
Yeah, go ahead, Waqar.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So let me just see if I can. Oh, okay. I can't share while other participants share.
Okay, I'll stop sharing.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. So let's see this one. Okay. Do you see this graph?
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay. So this really summarized things for me really well. And so what it shows, beginning from the left-hand side, before the Paris Agreement, this is the midpoint of predictions from several different models. And so before the Paris Agreement, the prediction was 3.5 degrees C for temperature increase, which is very large. And then by 2020, that had been reduced to 2.6 degrees C because of actions taken towards these 2030 commitments that countries have been making. and then immediately before COP26, that was reduced to 2.4 because there were, as you may recall, including the United States, made commitments coming up to COP26. During COP26 itself, the couple of 2-3 weeks, there were some further commitments made, and that was dropped to 2.3. So really, quite a significant effect of the Paris Agreement. I mean, I think this is something, very, very positive. And then and this is without including the net zero commitments that countries have made, which are a lot more vague, really, and there's a lot less substance behind them than the 2030 commitments. But if you include those, pre-COP26, the prediction, the midpoint, 2.0 degrees C, and after COP26, 1.8. But like I said, these are quite uncertain. But this is the progress, midpoint down to 2.3. Now the range is quite large. It could be 1.8 up to 2.9, which is quite significant range. But that sort of summarized at a high level where things stand for me.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I would love if you could send that to me. I had a question. Is this based on the concrete steps that countries have already taken under the Paris Agreement, or is this based off of their commitments that have not yet been realized?
This is based upon, so these are these 3 bars here are based on 2030 commitments, which have not yet been realized. So these commitments, that is a caveat. These commitments have to be realized in order for these to come true.
And that's probably the safest way to use models is by picking a midpoint of the aggregate of the models. So
yeah,
no, that's pretty compelling. Thanks.
Sure. Okay, let me stop sharing.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion then on COP26?
I'll just add, this is Dory. I apologize for being late, and thank you, Mark, for doing this. And I would look forward to our thoughts on Build Back Better. Like, are we going to be able to start working towards our commitments with some legislation that's recently passed? Are we hopeful?
Dory, did you want to start a discussion on that now? Was that what you were asking?
I just wanted to ask the question. If anybody had some uplifting thoughts, I do not. So no discussion, maybe the next time we meet.
I actually was going to say a little bit about Build Back Better on the lobbying slide, just based off of what the House passed yesterday.
Yep.
So,
why don't we wait till we get to that, if that's okay,
Okay,
then
cool.
that sounds like a good plan. All right, so Mark, thank you so much for putting this together, and I'm going to go on and continue then. And so now we're up to the section in our monthly meeting where we do our calling campaign, and Mark, this is yours again, so please go ahead.
All right, thank you, Joe. Yeah, so mainly for the new people, I think most of us are familiar with the monthly calling campaign, but for the new people, the first link on the slide there is to sign up for the monthly calling campaign with the National Citizens Climate Lobby Organization. So what that does is every month you will get a email, I believe, reminder. I know I get an email from them saying, hey, it's time to call your congresspersons. And that's both senators and your district representative. So in a minute, I'll go ahead and demonstrate that. The second link on the slide there, the bottom one, is a really neat site that you can enter your street address and zip code, and it'll bring up, of course, your 2 senators, but also your House of Representative person for your district. And it'll have the contact information, and most helpfully, it will have a short script for you to follow, so you don't have to come up with your own. Next slide, please. So we would ask everybody to mute yourself. If you have your phone handy, go ahead and make the call. We'll take about 5 minutes to call both senators. And if you access that link there, it will give you the script. I think a lot of that depends on whether the representative is Republican or Democrat.
Yep.
So I will keep my speaker unmuted and I'll go ahead and demonstrate.
Yep. And I just want to mention one more thing. We have that footnote at the bottom of the slide. Oftentimes when we call during the weekend, their voice mailboxes will be full. And so we've learned that if that's the case, you can hang up, call back, dial 0. And at some point, you're going to get into a different voice mailbox where you actually can leave a message. So, all right. Thank you, Mark. Let's go ahead and do this. We'll take 5 to 10 minutes then.
Call, please press 3-8 now.
Oops, looked like I made a boo-boo there. Let me try Senator Cornyn again.
Hello, this is Senator John Cornyn. Thanks for calling my Washington, D.C. office. For general information regarding my office locations and operating hours, please press 1. To leave a comment regarding current issues of interest, please press 2. If you'd like to speak directly with I appreciate you taking the time to make your views known on current policy issues of interest to you. Please leave your comment as well as your local zip code after the tone. Thank you and have a great day.
Hello, Senator Cornyn. My name is Mark Harrinan. I live in zip code 77080 in Houston. And I would urge you to enact a federal carbon price so U.S. businesses can avoid paying Europe's border tariff and remain competitive internationally. Thank you. All right, I'm going to do the same thing with Senator Cruz.
Hi, this is Ted Cruz. Thank you for calling my Washington, D.C. office. It is an honor and privilege to serve the great state of Texas as your United States Senator, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts and your comments. To leave a message for me about current issues or legislation, please press 1. For information regarding Thank you so much for your thoughts and concerns about the important issues facing our nation. Please leave me a message and include your name, your city of residence, and your email address. Thank you.
I'm sorry, but that mailbox is full. Please try again later. Thank
Hi, this is Ted Cruz. Thank you for calling my Washington, D.C. office. It is an honor and privilege to serve the great state of Texas as your United States Senator, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts and your comments. To leave a message for me about current issues or legislation, please press 1. For information regarding Thank you so much for your thoughts and concerns about the important issues facing our nation. Please leave me a message and include your name, your city of residence, and your email address. Thank you.
I'm sorry, but that mailbox is full.
All right, if I had his other office number, I would try that, but I'm going to go on to my representative, who's Dan Crenshaw.
I'm sorry, the person you were trying to reach has a voicemail box that has not been set up yet. Please try your call again later. Goodbye.
Well, 1 out of 3, not a very good average. Let's see. Let's see if I can get Crenshaw's local office.
Thank you for contacting Congressman Crenshaw's Cypresswood office. We're unavailable at the moment. If you could please leave your name and number, a staff member will get back to you. Thank you.
Hello, this is Mark Harrinan. I live in 77080 zip code. And I would ask Representative Crenshaw to vote for the Growing Climate Solutions Act when it comes up for a vote in the House. This bill will help farmers, ranchers, and foresters access carbon markets and to get paid for carbon emissions, prevention, and carbon sequestration. Thank you. Yeah, and that's it. Our national organization would like us to record that we called, and I believe if you're on that link there at the end of your call, it'll give you that option for just press a button. And I'll turn it back over to you, Joe.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Did everybody have a chance to make your calls?
Yes.
I don't know if you can see us, but yes.
Excellent.
That's
Okay.
par for the course for Cruise, by the way.
I love that. I love that zero. That was great. Calling back and dialing zero. I got to leave.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I did as well. I dialed zero and I was able to leave a message for him. So hopefully
Or you
everybody else dialed back.
Or you can go to their website and call their other offices around Texas. Sometimes they're better at emptying out their phone mail.
Okay. Thank you so much, everybody, for calling. We'll go on to the next slide. So, there's so much going on now in Washington, and there's still negotiations. There's still work that we have to do. And so this is our to-do list of things that we still want to do. And this is what shows up in our CCL website dashboard when you go in to see what's there. We still want to ask our senator for a carbon price. We want to sign up for phone or text banking if we can, if we have time, and then learn about more ways to act. And so today we made our monthly calls, which are great, but time permitting, there's still so much more work to do. And let me go ahead and put these in the chat window so everybody has these. Okay, next slide, more miscellaneous topics. So as I mentioned earlier, last week, November 13th, we did have our CCL National Convention. And for people that are new to CCL, we have this typically at least twice each year. We had one earlier during the summer, I think that was in June, and this is our most current one. They have excellent sessions on all different topics related to climate advocacy, what's going on with the statuses, how we can do better at what we're doing. And so there are video recordings of all of the sessions. If you were not able to attend, let me put this into the chat window as well. And these are really worth watching. Okay, going on to the next slide. And so one of the breakout sessions last week was an update from our CCL VP, Danny Richter, on the status of the negotiations in Washington. And this has a separate web link. I'm going to put this in the chat as well. If you have not seen that, it's, again, well worth looking at. Oh, actually, I already put that in the chat window. I copied and pasted both of the links. So they're in their window now. Just a quick status update if you're not watching the news. And so in the Senate, the reporting is that we now have 49 out of the required 50 votes from the Democrats that will be needed for a price on carbon. And of course, we're waiting for something to happen with Senator Manchin. And if that happens, then the expectation is that we'll have our VP Kamala Harris voting on that to break the tie. to pass that along. And again, that will become part of the budget reconciliation process. It'll have to go back to the House, and it'll go from there. Okay, a couple more important web links that I always put into the chat window during our meetings. The first one is the web link for our Houston chapter website. And the second web link is for this particular slide deck, if anyone would like to have a copy of the slide deck. And so let me put those in the chat window now. And I think we're all caught up with the links that you need. So at this point, we typically go into our status updates from our 5 levers. And for those that are new, our levers, that's how we actually do the work that needs to be done. We have our lobby team, grass tops team, grassroots team, media, and chapter development. And so we'll go through all of the current status reports from each of those 5 levers. So John.
Okay, thank you, Joe. In terms of meetings that we have had or have scheduled, I know that Hans in Dan Crenshaw's district had a meeting this past week. John Glover, did you guys have a meeting with Lizzie Fletcher?
Yes, yeah. Had to
Okay,
unmute there.
Oh, no problem.
We did.
And
We met Thursday.
Excellent. With Congressman Al Green, that meeting has been postponed, but will happen. And I have a face-to-face meeting with Congresswoman Garcia on Monday. So we've had 4 scheduled. We did better than our last lobbying round. With Jackson Lee and with Nels, they're still kind of reaching out and seeing if they can get a meeting, but nothing so far. I did want to take a minute to talk about some of the legislation that just passed. So in terms of the climate investments in the physical infrastructure bill, just real quickly, I'll say that there was $39 billion there for high-speed rail that the White House is calling the largest federal investment in public transit in history. And then also there was $7.5 billion for zero and low emissions buses and ferries, and $7.5 billion to go towards building a national network of plug-in electric vehicles. So there was climate investment in the physical infrastructure bill. There is more in the Build Back Better Act, which they just voted on yesterday. When I'm done finishing, I'll put a link in the chat. The House version of that, which passed largely along party lines. There was one Democrat who voted against it, but he wasn't in Texas. It does not have a carbon price. However, it did have a methane price. Basically, they voted to put a price on methane. And I'm pleased I was pleased to see that all of our Houston area Democrats voted for a price on methane. That seems like a step towards being willing to vote for a price on carbon. The House version of the Build Back Better Act also had the clean electricity payment performance policy in there. What that is it requires electricity companies to use 4% more renewable energy annually. And if they do, they get a tax break. And if they don't, there's a tax penalty. So that is considered to be one of the most aggressive policies that they were looking at in terms of greenhouse gas reductions. In terms of the Senate, Joe Manchin does not like that. And so I don't know if it'll be in a Senate version. And it's possible that any of these could change in a Senate bill. It's possible the carbon price could be added in. Like Joe said, we have 49 out of 50 votes. It's possible that these things could be taken out. So I don't know if we wanted to have any discussion on that or not, but that's our lobbying update.
John, I have one point for discussion regarding the clean electricity payment performance. So I believe that's what was also supposed to be included in the Senate bill, but with the objections from Senator Manchin, that's been removed now from the Senate bill. Is that correct? Were those the same programs?
Yes, that's the exact same program. I was surprised that the House included it, but I guess that the House likes it. There is the text to the Build Back Better Act if you want to look. There's massive investment in terms of, tax cuts for renewable energy investment, massive investment in carbon capture. The other thing that I wanted to say is that, we should keep in mind that there is more in the Build Back Better Act than just climate measures. And when we talk with congressional offices, we should remember that there's lots of other stuff about education and healthcare and paid family leave and all that, and that they're considering all of it and not just the climate measures.
John, thank you for that summary. That's exactly what I wanted.
Excellent.
Beautifully.
All right, any other discussion, or we'll go on to the next slide? Just checking my audio. Can you still hear me?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Okay, we'll go on to the next slide then. And Court, this is the status for grass tops.
I don't only think there are just a couple of steps to
Great
come down.
morning, y'all. So
Somewhere,
as
I mean, you don't have to place it, but I mean.
Oh.
this week, we got a endorsement from EU, which was very exciting, and just want to appreciate Non and for making that connection. And then John and I were able to have a one-on-one with an individual who made an endorsement, and then from there that went to their board. And so that was just a really great win for us and very exciting. We have ongoing economist outreach and various presentations to high schools that are ongoing. And also recently we, Dory and I spoke with another climate group, and we want to build a relationship with them as far as maybe having more opportunity for chapter development opportunities. And as we go into 22, we'll keep pressing forward with talking to different businesses and thinking of ideas and sectors to reach. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Court. What was the other group that you were thinking that we would just have discussions with? I was just curious.
They are the ACC, American Conservation. Dory, can you help me remember that group's name? I didn't write it down for this meeting.
I think you nailed it, American Conservation Corps. So it was fascinating. They take their view on addressing climate needs to be make sure they reach the conservative voters, or not voters, as just people. And so when I mentioned the idea of a green energy fair at some point, they latched onto it. They like to plant trees. So that was, they were the ones that we were going to, that some of us tried to volunteer to plant trees with them. They love planting trees because it brings people together with a common, like everybody loves a tree, right? And so when I mentioned the green energy fair idea, he's like, I think if we called it the Innovation Energy Fair, he would be able to get behind it. I thought that was brilliant. And that's what our bill is, right? The energy innovation. That's how you don't put the word green in, because that might divide for some crazy reason. So I thought that was great. So, but that won't be till spring of next year.
Okay, thank you for that.
Or can you hear me?
We can hear you, Mark.
Yeah, I just had a question that who endorsed our bill? You have UU, and what is that?
Universal Unitarian.
Unitarian Universalist, right? The first Unitarian Universalist church in Houston. And it's not the first UU endorsement we've gotten, because Emerson. So it's called the First Unitarian Universalist Church. That's the name of the church.
Yeah, that's the one on Fannin, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else for Court before I move on?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Court. Mark, we have grassroots status update.
Okay, thank you. Very brief. We did have a presentation by one of our members, Kristen Newell, at my church, which is Live Oak Friends meeting a week or two ago. So we had about, 10, 12 people in attendance. So I'm sorry, Kristen went over the En-ROADS simulated model. And yeah, I thought it went very well. I haven't followed up asking for an endorsement from our church, but I can do that. Disappointing news. I was carrying on some conversations with the Catholic Church, St. Jerome, and those kind of came to an end with no response after a couple of attempts to reach out. So I'm going to move on from that one. And to end on a positive note, I am giving a presentation in 2 weeks at another Universalist Unitarian church out in the Sugar Land area. I believe that's the Thoreau Unitarian Church, and that will be on December 5th. There should be about 20 people, I was told, that will be present for that. And anybody here is welcome to attend that.
Mark, for that upcoming presentation, did you want to send out a meeting invitation? We can do some preparation for that, review slide deck that we want to use and so on.
How would I do that?
Typically, we just have to find out who's interested. We'll have to select a date and time when people are available, and then we can just send out a Zoom meeting invitation. That's for our internal team, whoever is interested in participating, just so we can prepare in advance and assign specific slides to whoever wants to present them.
Okay.
Is that in person or virtual?
That'll be virtual, I believe, Mark, right? By Zoom.
Right, it's virtual.
Okay. And so I definitely want to be involved in that. John Segrin, were you interested also in joining, or?
I think so. I just realized I might have a commitment, but I had told Mark I was, so I hope I can keep my word.
Okay. Yeah, Mark, if you can just, I guess, send out an email, we can all respond back with our availability, and let's just schedule a prep meeting for that.
All right.
And then I did have one question also about the presentation that was completed by Kristen. What was the actual outcome of that? Did we have interest from the attendees and possibly joining us, or any particular outcome going forward?
No, there was not. I don't think there was an invitation to join CCL.
Okay. It's always good to add something like that, some kind of action step at the very end, so we can get people interested in joining us and helping out.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Anything else?
No, that's it.
All right. I'll go on to the next slide. And this is my slide. This is the media lever team. Quite a lot of information here. I guess we had a lot of good accomplishments over the last month. 2 CCL-Houston newsletters sent out, one in early October, one November 8th. I'm hoping that everybody here on the call is receiving those in your inbox and not going into spam. This week, November 17th, we participated in a media interview, and that was myself, Court, and John Glover all participated. It was a very interesting interview. And this was from the podcast. It was a podcast interview from, quote, The Drag, which is produced at the University of Texas in Austin through what's called the Audio Production House. And so we completed that. It was roughly about an hour-long interview with all of us presenting our CCL information on the advocacy that we do, current status on climate change in general, impacts from Hurricane Harvey, and so on. And they mentioned that they were pleased with the interview as well, and that will be scheduled to be released sometime in spring 2022 timeframe. And so once we get that, of course, I'm going to share that. And that was very interesting. Moving down on the slide, we had a couple of letters to the editor. The first one by Wakar, submitted to the Houston Chronicle, and that was published. And so thank you so much, Wakar. And that was in response to an article called Chevron's Net Zero Ambitions Are a First Step, but much more is needed. I submitted 2 letters to the editor. Neither was published, but they're not always going to be published. The first one is in response to Exxon outlines vision for lower carbon future, expands carbon capture capacity. And the second one was in response to an article, U.S. to gauge climate damage from federal oil and gas sales. And then in addition to that, for those of us that are on Twitter, there's also a couple of Twitter actions we can take. And so those links are in the slide here, which you have access to. And it's always great if we can step up our Twitter activity. That helps quite a bit. I'm going to go on to the next set of slides. I always like to include some samples of the tweets we've sent out from our Twitter account at CCL-Houston. A couple of these here. The first one on the left. This was an article that was published in Clean Technica showing that specifically in South Australia, this article stated that South Australia is now getting 72% of their electricity from solar plus wind. I thought that was extremely interesting. And again, that's an example of what people are doing. The second one on the right here, this is something that was published by the city of Houston about their Houston Climate Week 2021, which was scheduled for the week of November 15th through the 19th. So that just completed. I'm not sure if anybody attended that. Two more tweets here. The second one, well, the first one here on the left, I published that on Veterans Day. And there was a really good article here in the Hill publication, and stating that, again, the military is one of the largest consumers of energy, and that it's really up to the military to do what they can to try to reduce their carbon emissions as well. On the right here, this was something that looked very good. It was a nice graphic from CCL National. And basically it says, let's keep this simple, right? We need a price on carbon, 52% decrease with a carbon price. So a couple of nice graphics there. Two more here. On the one on the left was a new CCL video that was recently published. And it was a really nice video. On the right, that was leading up to the COP26. And this was in regard to an article that was there talking about more regulation specifically for methane. And so I tweeted out a comment, a remark saying that, you know, we CCL, we like to think that a market-based approach is preferred over more regulations, right? That's our approach. So I thought that was nice. A couple more here. On the left, this was another video. This video was created by the UN, and they have a dinosaur in their video that's actually going into the UN building in New York City. If you haven't seen that, it's really kind of a nice video. And they talk about the dinosaurs going extinct, right? And so going extinct is a bad thing. Luckily, most of us are smarter than the dinosaurs. And this is a no-brainer. So I thought that was fun. On the right, this was a tweet from the Young Conservatives for Carbon Dividends. I did a retweet on that. That looked like a nice tweet. And let's see, I think just a couple more slides here. On the left, this was an article in the New York Times from a businessman in Australia. And the article title is, Can a carbon emitting iron ore tycoon save the planet? A very, very interesting article. On the right there was a thank you we sent out for Congressman Crenshaw when we found out that he was planning to attend COP26. A couple more here on the left. This one was a video created by Professor Catherine Hayhoe, and it kind of introduces herself, and it was a really nice video. So I put that out there. And the one on the right, this was a policy paper that was published and put out by the Rice University Baker Institute on what the US can do in response to China. And basically the summary there is that the best thing we can do is to have a carbon tax and a carbon border adjustment to to compensate for what China is doing, basically. So a couple of interesting things. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dory for the chapter development status.
Joe?
Yeah.
Before we move on, I just wanted to emphasize that that Houston Climate Week, that was really heart-lifting that our city, our mayor and our city actually devoted a whole 5 days. They lined up presentations on a lot of different areas like transportation, waste. I don't know what all. I was hoping to be able to attend some of those, but I was not able to. But just very encouraging that our city did that.
And it's really good, part of the climate action plan. Oh, go ahead, Jim.
And further to that, it was sort of under the umbrella of U of H downtown. And each of the presentations, which were 45 minutes to an hour, were topical. And they told me, the ones that I missed, they said they would try and have them posted on some U of H downtown website in the coming week. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Good feedback. All right. And with that, Dory,
Yeah,
what can you
if
tell
I
us about
could-
chapter development?
I'm proud to be a Houstonian, not so proud to be a Texan, but I'm proud to be a Houstonian with this climate action plan. And I see Jenny is here. So Jenny and I have been welcoming new members to our chapter. We call them when they sign up to CCL and encourage them to join our Slack channel and the Lever group. And Jenny, didn't know if you wanted to say anything at this time about how the calls have been going.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've been talking to a lot of members who were very excited to be a part of our chapter and sounded like they wanted to be more engaged across, different teams, our lovers. And a couple of them, said that they were pretty busy, so they didn't have much time, but they would try to make time to at least participate in our monthly calling campaigns. So that was good to hear. And yeah, happy to generally have more engagement with these new members.
And I saw Allison, thank you for putting that. How do I join Slack? So the theory is you email us and I can put my email in the chat and then I invite you. And then it's that simple. It's you just have to, for me, I have to keep one of my tabs open that lets me know that, oh, chat is here, but you can do it on your phone too. And it's just a nice way, although we all need to be using it more of us, I think, meaning more of the members, so that we can use it more. All right, so there's my email and you can just email me and I will definitely invite you to Slack. So that's fun. And thank you, Jenny, for doing that. And I agree. It's not cold calling because they've already decided to be a CCL member. We're just telling them about what we do here in Houston and greater Houston area. And again, like Allison, if you're part of another organization, as you've heard, our different groups, we reach out, happy to reach out and present and invite more. I always think that it's just nice to have numbers as our numbers grow, because the numbers is what politicians look at too. How many are there that are asking for this climate change stuff? But the best part of being part of chapter development is we get to just have we get to remember that there's more than working on the climate. We also need to touch the earth, which we've been doing in our monthly walks and talks. And then we decided, steering committee, I believe, right, that this December, rather than a December meeting, we thought we would try and meet in person, outdoors. So I'm calling it Cookies and Cocoa Holiday Cheer, right? Just as kind of stop by on December 11th at 4 o'clock. And in the courtyard, we'll be outside. There's overhang, so if the weather's nasty, we can still do it. And there's bathrooms, so don't worry, you can get in and use the bathroom. But we'll be at the Emerson Unitarian Universalist Church, and John is excited, yay. So there's the address, and we'll make this front and center for the next newsletter. And Joe, if the next newsletter doesn't come out in time for this, I can do a separate, just a one topic thing saying, let's celebrate the end of the year. We have a lot to celebrate, actually, with the movement that's been happening. So let's stop by for cookies and cocoa. We have done in the past an ugly sweater party, but I didn't want to do any ugly sweaters. So we're just going to do cookies and cocoa. Any thoughts or comments or suggestions for like tree planting, other events coming up? We're looking into different things we can do, and maybe trash pickup around the bayou would be another way that we could meet and do some good for our planet. But we're open, Jenny and I are open to lots of suggestions.
I love the idea of the trash pickup along the bayou.
Yeah, Dory, actually, when I was in high school, I think part of like my National Honor Society here in Houston, we participated with the Buffalo Bayou, we had some partnership with them. I don't remember what exact organization it was, but like you could sign up to volunteer with them as a group or a team. So maybe that's something to explore as well for a future meetup.
And what month is a good month to do that? Is like, you don't want to be too hot, so you don't want summer, but you want to be not too cold, so you don't want winter. You know, is it a March, maybe aim for March or April?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I think just like warm-ish weather, not too hot, not too cold, like you said.
I also would love to do that where everybody gets in a kayak and the people who, you know, we sponsor it somehow maybe, and whoever picks up the most trash in their kayak without tipping over, it's some prize.
I don't think we need to be too scared of the Houston winter either. It's not that cold. We could possibly do it in the winter.
Looks like Jim has your hand up. Go ahead, Jim.
Oh, yes, and just following on to what Dory mentioned at Emerson UU earlier that day, for those that are interested, the Houston Renewable Energy Group will be at the community table at the Memorial Villages Farmers Market, 9 to 1, talking about renewable things for those that are in that mindset. Thank you.
Jim, do you have a web link for that you can put into our chat?
For the market, I don't know if HREG is got anything out yet, but yeah, that's good to check on.
I was thinking, Mark, this could be an opportunity for a tabling event possibly, but I guess we need to get more details about that event.
What was the name of the farmer's market, Jim?
It's Memorial Villages Farmers Market, 10840 Beinhorn, just outside Loop 610.
Okay, thank you.
We have a community table most Saturdays for not-for-profit groups.
Great, thank
and
you.
is there a cost for it, or is it just to offer a table?
No, it's you get a shelter, a table, a couple of chairs, and whatever you want to hand out. And yeah, Bill Swan is going to have, you know, his PV panels and stuff out. So
good.
Thank you for mentioning that, Jim. It's good information.
No problem.
A couple of things I'd like to just kind of summarize from the slide. And Dory, thank you for putting this together. In regard to Slack, I'm hoping that everybody that's on this call, maybe except for the newer folks, is already on Slack, because when things come up, that's the easiest way for us to send out our communications. Really simple and easy. It's quick. People get it, and it's easy for us to send it out there. So I highly encourage everyone to join Slack if you're not on there and to participate in it. And if you're not on yet, send an email to Dory and she can get you added on. The next item, the Cookies and Cocoa Holiday Cheer Saturday event. I wanted to clarify that this event will be instead of and replaces our normal monthly chapter meeting. So we will not be meeting at our normal time of 10:30 a.m. on December 11th. Instead, we'll be meeting at 4 o'clock for this event. And so this is just a fun get together. I don't think we'll be conducting any normal business that we normally do, just a fun gathering. So please, I hope everybody joins. And for the newsletter, Dory, I will be getting the distribution of that sent out on that Monday. I typically schedule them so they do go out the week prior to our monthly events.
Are kids welcome at that event?
Dory?
I don't know if you can see me nodding my head, probably not because we're sharing a slide, but yes, kids, dogs. it's a, yes, family friendly, very much family friendly event. We just have to remember I'm coming out of COVID slowly, and I just have to keep remembering that we are social creatures, and we need to remember that.
Thank you.
Okay. Dory, anything else you want to add?
Nope, that's it.
Great, thank you. Go on to our next slide. Normally, we do have these lever breakout sessions if we want to break out into smaller teams, but we have a fairly small group today. So I don't think we really want to break out into smaller groups, but we can certainly continue our discussion. If any of our leaders have specific topics, we can just bring them all up here in the larger session, I think.
That sounds good, Joe. And if you stop sharing, we can see each other. That would be good.
Sure, let me do that. Okay. So maybe John, starting with lobby team, anything in particular you want to add about lobby team activities?
Well, the details of lobby meetings are largely confidential. We don't want to get into too much nitty gritty, but to Hans and John, who have already had meetings, did you have generally a thumbs up or thumbs down kind of feel to your meeting?
Well, one sets the bar, according to past experience. And so based on the bar that we'd set, visiting with Lizzie Fletcher, and say, sure, it went as well as we could have expected. The staff member was quite courteous and very talkative to us. We had a grand total of 15 minutes.
That's a tight meeting.
We expect great things from Lizzie Fletcher, yes.
She just voted to price methane, so that's something.
Yeah. That we met right before the vote, so we didn't have that to discuss. But
so the meeting with Crenshaw's office, I thought went pretty well. We got a full 30 minutes and maybe a little over 30 minutes. She went a little bit overtime for us. Hannah, the energy and environmental aid. I wouldn't say there was dramatic movement. We got some really good feedback from Hannah about where Dan's thinking in terms of various climate solutions and policies, which was very educational. I would say the one positive outcome of the meeting was when we mentioned the border adjustment. She was surprisingly did not seem to know very much about the border adjustment, which was surprising to us because we have presented that to her in the past. But she did ask for some additional information, on how the border adjustment would work and such. So I'm going to pull together some information to that end to send to her, pretty soon. So I thought that was the one encouraging thing, rather than just shoot down carbon fee and dividend with border adjustment. She said, well, I'd like to hear more about border adjustment. So that was somewhat encouraging.
The other thing, Hans, I'll just mention, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
The other thing I just wanted to mention, that it was good that we also had two representatives from CCL Woodlands join our meeting, because they will be carrying that going forward once the redistricting is completed. And most of us are no longer in that district.
It's good.
What are y'all? Where are y'all going to be?
I moved to Sheila Green. I'm sorry, Sheila.
Sheila Green.
Sheila Green. I'm having a brain freeze. What's her last name?
Jackson Lee.
Jackson Lee. You'll learn it.
Thank you. That's
I'll still be in Crenshaw's district going forward.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to be moving Hans to actually to Texas 07, which is John Glover's district.
Ah, okay. Lucky John.
yes. Oh, and before we leave, John and Wakar, can we have a little get together? Don't sign off of this meeting until I want to chat with y'all.
Sure.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, and I was able to attend the meeting with Hannah Anderson, Crenshaw's aide, and I thought it was interesting, since it's hard to get a yes or a no a lot of times. And I forget the specific question, but one of our early questions, she spent about 3 minutes talking around not giving a no answer. And I thought that was interesting, and maybe suggesting that there's some discussion going on in the representative's office about whichever specific topic we ask on.
That was the question around how much temperature rise would he
right
tolerate, and what kind of target would he endorse?
Yeah, I guess
she talked all over the map on that. Yeah.
It grew out of our questions on, what did he feel like coming out of the COP meeting that he went to. And so I thought, it was not a definite no. And so I thought, well, maybe that indicates there's some discussion going on in their office. So I took that as positive as anything else that came out of the meeting. Thank you.
Did COP seem to influence his position on anything? Okay.
I would say no.
Not that any of us could detect, I think.
Okay.
John, anything else?
That's it for me.
Court, anything you want to bring up about grass tops?
Sure. So there was Max Galvin, one of our volunteers, informed us of a meeting through one of his professional organizations for psychiatrists, and it was a local individual who was speaking about health impacts and climate change. And he gave an interesting presentation similar to one that was given by a health professional at our last regional, in the one that was in person in February of 2020. Anyways, if y'all are interested, maybe Max and I could reach out to that doctor to see if they would want to be a guest speaker. If that sounds, I think he has two presentations, one that's more geared towards health and the climate crisis, and maybe one that's slightly different. But would that be of interest to anyone?
It sounds like it'll be interesting. I'm assuming that what he would speak about is all related to climate change, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, his presentation was really good. And I would be curious because he mentioned he had two, and I would be curious what the other one is. And maybe that's something we could ask him.
That sounds good. Maybe perhaps for January. There's still quite a lot of time to plan for January if
Okay.
he's interested.
Sure, that sounds good.
Excellent.
Cool.
Okay. I guess next up would be myself for media. And I'm always looking for volunteers that want to help out with media. So for example, Allison, you're fairly new, and have you sort of figured out what your interest might be and what area you would like to help out? Grass tops, grassroots, lobbying, media, chapter development. Any thoughts?
Yeah, what Court is doing sounds pretty interesting to me.
Grass tops. Great.
Yeah.
Okay. So Court, you can add Allison to your meetings.
All right, will do. Thank you, Allison.
Yeah, I got your email, so I can shoot you an email.
Okay, excellent. And Dory and Jenny, anything else you want to share about ideas for chapter development?
No. You've snatched up the volunteers, so we're still looking for volunteers as well.
All
No,
right.
we're good. The flow of people joining is very manageable at this point in time. And
Okay.
Mark, we should probably work with you to do the second touch, decide how we second touch. And maybe we can, well, maybe I cannot, but maybe we can think about using the December 11th event as a reason to second touch new members, like just, even if it's just an email, well, saying whatever we say. So let's talk on that. And Jenny, if you have ideas, pipe up.
And
Yeah,
Dory,
a meet and greet with sugar.
Dory, I'll just add that my wife Susan keeps asking, when are we going for our next CCL-Houston walk? We always like to walk, and she keeps asking me and remind me, when are we doing the next one? What happened in November? Why didn't we walk?
We can
in
walk around the
November?
courtyard, with our cocoa and cookies.
Yeah,
Jenny, I'm saying-
we should really promote this cookies and cocoa thing. We can even make an Eventbrite. Make sure to put it on Slack. Joe, I know you'll put it on
Actually,
Twitter.
there's a meetup. Our Emerson Church does meetup too, which has a different audience as well. So yes, steering committee, let's work on getting that message out.
One question related to that though, is there some type of head count limitation? How big is the space? How small is it?
We're outside. And if we're inside, 50 max into Westwood Hall. So if the weather was, we're not going to do a rain event. This is it. And there's
Right.
overhangs, and there'll be, I don't know anyway, the magic's going to happen, but 50 people would be max if we had to be inside.
And do we think it would be okay to invite outside people to the event?
Absolutely. This could be a come and learn about CCL as well, but let's not add too much weight to the messaging. Let's make the messaging fun.
Sure.
Will there be dancing and a piñata?
No, although I heard someone talk about how their church was like whatever. They did a Bach cantata thing, and then afterwards invited everybody outside for like a beer garden, German beer garden with Oompa band and dressed up. I'm like, okay, so wear your festive, whatever you think festive is, and come with your good cheer. And yeah, Court, do you have your hand raised?
Thanks. Do y'all have rules I would like to bring to the table? If we could BYO cups or mugs, but if y'all have a no glass policy, just to keep that, what are y'all's rules with glassware?
I love what I usually do is I try and collect everybody's recyclable, whatever I served them, and reuse them. But plastic and hot cocoa is a tough one. The church does have mugs, china mugs. And so I would try and probably use those and just do dishes afterwards. I hadn't thought about bringing your own because it's hot chocolate, right? Because that's a weird bring your own. But if you bring your own coffee mug, that's a fine footnote. Bring your own coffee mug. And if people want to bring their favorite cookie recipe to share, I was just thinking during this call, panicking, because I'm like, okay, now we're opening up. And I said cookies. I'm just going to do sugar cookie in the tree form. That's it. I'm just going to do Christmas trees or holiday trees, whatever. Evergreen trees. That's what I'm going to do because that's how we're going to help our climate along with the carbon tax. So.
Excellent. I like the idea of people bringing their own cookies. If we want to open it up for that, that sounded like a good idea.
At least the steering committee, at least the hardcore. I want people to come and just enjoy. I want no obligation.
All right.
I love baking cookies. I'm happy to bring cookies.
Excellent. Dory, we just have to estimate what the expenses will be so we can have a formal vote on that to approve whatever the expenses will be.
Yeah, what if it's donated by Dory?
Here's my mug.
Oh, yay. Excellent.
Can you tell who that is?
Oh, yeah. I remember.
Yeah, I see that.
That's my Bernie mug.
Oh, yay.
My wife keeps telling me I'm not drinking enough water all day, so I'll fill this with water and put it in the sink. And every time I go by, I've got Bernie telling me, drink your water.
Excellent.
And Joe, I know I got reimbursed for the trees that we donated as a gift. And I felt silly being donated. So I committed to turning that money back into some other charity. And I did that. I will donate whatever. So there will be no expenses associated with this party.
Appreciate it. But don't feel obligated. I don't know how expensive it'll be.
I don't know either. And
Just let us know.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
Do you have everything you need for the hot chocolate?
I'm going to need to get a big thermos, but I also could just get a big pot and bring it out, because we have a kitchen at Westwood Hall, so I can keep things warm and then bring it out, and we'll just do it the old fashioned way, ladle. No plastic. I would love no plastic. So yeah, there'll be a nice big pot of hot chocolate.
Excellent. It sounds like it'll be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. So let's wrap up the meeting. Don't want to keep people longer than they need to be here. Any last minute thoughts before we end?
Just remember you have to stay with John, and you have an after meeting here going on.
Okay. And let's go ahead and take our group photo if we could. Everybody turn on your cameras, Jenny and Jim.
If you're able.
If you're able to. Jenny and Jim.
Sorry, I'm on my desktop, so no webcam, unfortunately.
Okay, no worries. So let's just have a big smile. All right, let me just make sure it came out okay on my end. Yeah, looks like a good picture. Thank you so much. Go ahead.
Excuse me, are we going to have a steering committee meeting next month?
We will. We always have it.
Okay.
There's no getting out of that.
You're
Why did you ask the question, Mark?
Because we're not having a meeting.
I was thinking it was connected to the monthly chapter meeting, and since we're not formally having a meeting, there would be no need for the steering committee.
Yeah. In fact, let me open the calendar and tell you when it'll be. Let's see.
While you're finding that, I thought it was really nice to have just a nice conversational meeting today.
Here. Looks like our steering committee is scheduled for November 2nd at the normal time, 8 p.m.
But John, if we had 2,000 people, as our membership shows, it would be okay to have it be more formal. But yes, when there's 12 of us, yes, this is great. All right, I'm going to go. I have a grandbaby to visit. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Nice to meet you all.
Welcome, Allison.
Bye.
Thank you.
He's
Bye.
bragging about that grandbaby.